At the age of 88, Pope Francis passed away after suffering from bilateral pneumonia and a polymicrobial respiratory tract infection for several months. In Yemen, the Ministry of Health reported that a new U.S. airstrike on the Furwa market killed at least 12 civilians and wounded 30 others. In Argentina, the government plans to cut some 400,000 disability pensions under the pretext of alleged irregularities in their distribution. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Vatican authorities announced that Pope Francis, at the age of 88, passed away Monday after suffering from bilateral pneumonia and a polymicrobial respiratory tract infection for several months, and a day after appearing in public at Easter Sunday Mass. The Supreme Pontiff died on Monday at 7:35 a.m. local time in his residence in Santa Marta, announced in a video message the Camarlengo Cardinal Farrell. Pope Francis, formerly known as Jorge Bergoglio, was the 264th Pope and the first Latin American to take this title. Different leaders, personalities, and institutions react on the death of Pope Francis. From the White House account, rest in peace, Pope Francis. For his part, the head of the United Nations Refugee Agency, Filippo Grandi, said, "May you continue to give us faith and courage in this brutal world." French President Emmanuel Macron said from Buenos Aires to Rome, Pope Francis wanted the Church to bring joy and hope to the poorest of the poor. Former member of the European Parliament Claire Daly wrote, "A man of peace, an outspoken critic of war."
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle.
Dear brothers and sisters, with profound pain, I must announce the death of our Holy Pope Francis. At 7:35 this morning, Pope Francis has returned to the house of the Father. All of his life has been dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his Church. He has taught us the value of the gospel with loyalty, courage, and universal love. In a particular way, in favor of the poorest and the more marginalized. With great gratitude for his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend his soul to the infinite and merciful love of God, one and triune.
Let's deepen a bit about his life dedicated to Catholicism. Pope Francis was born on December 17, 1936, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, being the first one from South America. Moreover, he was the first Jesuit to be elected as Pope on March 13, 2013. During his mandate, Pope Francis visited more than 50 countries, bringing a message of peace, humility, social harmony, and respect for democratic values. The Supreme Pontiff defended the rights of migrants and refugees and denounced the aggression of Gaza at the hands of Israel. He also took significant steps to combat the sex abuse crisis within the Catholic Church. And the Argentine government decreed 7 days of mourning for the death of Pope Francis. The information was released by the presidential spokesman, Manuel Adorni, who referred to Francis as a spiritual leader and guide for millions of men and women. The official's message was preceded by a publication by President Javier Milei, who also regretted the news, despite recognizing that he had differences with the leader of the Catholic Church. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, expressed his deepest sorrow at the physical departure of Pope Francis, spiritual leader and friend of the peoples. The statement expresses the president, together with the Venezuelan people, mourns with deep sorrow the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis, pastor of the world, brother of the South, and staunch defender of justice, peace, and the most humble. Pope Francis was a transforming spiritual leader whose clear and courageous voice denounced the inequalities of the dominant system and called for the construction of a more humane, just, and deeply united world. From his Latin American identity, he gave impetus to a church committed to the causes of the poor, to the protection of Mother Earth, and to dialogue between cultures and regions. His pontificate will be remembered for his profound option for the excluded, for his pastoral courage, and for his capacity to renew hope in the people. He was a man of God who did not hesitate to make the powerful uncomfortable with the truth of the gospel. Furthermore, the head of state added Venezuela will always remember him as a sincere friend, as the Pope was pushed with determination the canonization of Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez, symbol of faith of the Venezuelan people and a spiritual bridge between our struggles and our hope. We ask him, together with Mother Carmen Rindeles, to receive him in the glory of God. In this moment of spiritual recollection, the Venezuelan people unite in prayer, celebrating the luminous legacy of Francis, his love for his neighbor, his committed faith, and his testimony of humanity. His memory will live on in those of us who struggle for a world of dignity, peace, and social justice. And the Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum wrote on her X account, Pope Francis dies a humanist who opted for the poor, peace, and equality. He leaves a great legacy of true love for neighbors, for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. It is a great loss. To have known him was a great honor and privilege. May he rest in peace. For his part, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel took to X to say, "We deeply regret the passing of the unforgettable Pope Francis. The signs of affection and cordial closeness that he transmitted to our compatriots were always reciprocated by Cubans. We always remember with great affection his visits to Cuba and the words of affection he dedicated to our country in his messages. I extend heartfelt condolences to his family members and to the international Catholic community." And after the death of Pope Francis, let's review the official protocol of the Vatican step by step.
After the death of Pope Francis, the Church is in vacancy, and all the ministers cease their functions, and it will be the Cardinal Camerlengo, currently the Irish Kevin Farrell, who will administer it until a successor is found, as dictated by the Apostolic Constitution Universi Dominici Gregis of 1996. Pope Francis had appointed the Cardinal Camerlengo in 2019 and also modified the Ordo Exegitarum Romani Pontificis, the liturgical book that guides the funerals of the popes established by the Apostolic Constitution. Pope Francis had written down what he wanted his funeral to be like, simpler than those of previous popes. The funeral would be faithful to his austere style, without the exposition of the body on a catafalque in the Basilica of St. Peter, but in an open coffin. In this way, he proposed to eliminate both the tradition of depositing the popes in 3 coffins of cypress, lead, and oak, as well as the private wake of high officials of the Curia that was previously held before the public exposition. The death of the Pope is certified in his private chapel, and the cardinals under the age of 80 gather in the Sistine Chapel for the election of the new Pope, a secret process that requires a 2/3 majority. The conclave comes from the Latin cum clave, which means under lock and key, reflects the isolation and secrecy that characterize this event, and begins between 15 and 20 days after the declaration of the vacancy. During the meeting, voting takes place up to 4 times a day.
Let's now take our first break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok for more news and updated information of everything that is happening around the world. Join us at teleSUR English on TikTok. We're going to take a first break. Welcome back. In Yemen, the Ministry of Health reported that a new U.S. airstrike on the football market killed at least 12 civilians and wounded 30 others. Local media reported the U.S. strikes targeted residential areas in the city of Sana'a and the district of Bani Matar. The new airstrikes came 2 days after the U.S. strikes on the Ras Isa fuel port, which killed at least 80 people and wounded another 150. In this context, the U.S. attacks are being carried out as part of a Washington plan to abdicate Yemen's support to Palestine due to the Yemeni operations to prevent the passage of Israeli ships through the Red Sea, while the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people continues. And the Palestinian Red Crescent humanitarian organization rejected the Israeli army's report on the killing of 15 paramedics in the Gaza Strip last March, accusing it of being full of falsehoods. According to the spokeswoman of the Red Crescent, Nebal Farzak, the Israeli report is invalid and unacceptable because it justifies the death of rescuers and transfers the responsibility to an alleged personal error in the field of command. She also added that the Israeli government's statements seek to justify the death and ignore the real events that took place on March 23rd. The assassination of paramedics and rescuers from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society generated international outrage and demands for a war crimes investigation by the Israeli army and government. In other news, in Argentina, the government plans to cut some 400,000 disability pensions under the pretext of alleged irregularities in their distribution. This figure represents double what they had projected months ago and a third of the total number of current beneficiaries. The determinations will be decreed based on the results of the audit launched by the head of the National Disability Agency, Diego Spagnuolo, who signed the resolution that contained insults such as idiot and retarded to refer to the group. So far, half of those audited never received a notification to be evaluated due to Andy's own negligence. And in Ecuador, Progressive International Election Observer denounces irregularities in the recent presidential elections. The results presented as official gave Daniel Noboa 56% of the votes compared to 44% for Luisa Gonzalez. However, these numbers are widely questioned for presenting notable statistical inconsistencies. Election observer Lee Brown points the unlikelihood the same as in the first round, while Noboa experienced an increase, contradicting pre-election polls. Faced with this, Gonzalez has refused to recognize the result and has requested a full count and an independent audit, a request that has been denied by the electoral authorities. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on X, Telegram, TikTok, Instagram, and many others. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.